So hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us today. Today is our webinar looking at retaining your farming team members in a competitive labor market. I'm Catherine Doan, and I'm here today and very much looking forward to chatting with our webinar contributors. Just really looking at today's session and understanding what these individuals do on their farm when it comes to retaining talent. So today's session will be recorded for utilization as a resource in the future. And today is being made possible because of the provincial and federal governments, OFA, through a partnership with agcareers.com and careersandfood.com. We launched a program called Feeding Your Future, and this program delivers essential areas to support farmers, agribusiness, as well as job seekers to assist them in navigating the employment market as it has been affected by COVID-19. We've created a concierge project for job seekers, employers. We've done virtual career fairs, and then we are putting on these webinars to help you keep up to date with the changing trends that are developing in the food and agriculture industry as it affects employment. So today, we're very pleased to have with us both Rose Keunen, and Rose, I'll start by introducing you. Rose immigrated to Canada from the Netherlands in 1997. She is a proud wife to Henry and a mother of 3 daughters. And she received her master's in agricultural business and worked as a senior agricultural account manager for Rabobank. They currently milk 410 cows twice daily, and I'll let her go into a bit more of this information because she is going to tell us about her farming operation. As you can see, Rose has been the recipient of many different awards, which I know takes a lot of work and energy, and we really appreciate Rose taking the time today out of her busy schedule to be with us and share her life lessons and kind of expertise. So thank you, Rose, and welcome.
You're welcome.
And then coming also with us today is Jane. Jane, very pleasant and so lovely to offer to be with us today. Jane and her husband Ralph, along with one of their sons and son-in-law, operate Character Dairy Genetics. They're milking 160 cows on their farm based in Mildmay. And she's pictured here with 2 of her 13, soon to be 14 grandkids. And I think that says a lot. Family obviously was something that she brought up and is very important. And Jane, we just really appreciate you being here today as well so that we can have this conversation and talk and kind of go through some questions about your farming operation and when it comes to retaining and recruitment. So thank you, Jane. Very good. So welcome to you both. As I mentioned, we're going to pop down these slides here and instead really focus on just a bit of a conversation. We do have some questions. We'll go back and forth. And if you don't mind, Rose, we'll maybe start with you and just, can you tell us about your farming operation?
So yeah, I do farm with my husband together. We have a group of employees working for us because all our girls are in the university, the 3 girls. So that means we are very dependent on our hired help to do all the work with milking over 400 cows and 1,000 acres of corn, soybeans, and alfalfa. So we have to make sure that we have a good group of employees working for us to make this all happen.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you. And Jane, can you just tell us about your farm?
So well, we have 3 different locations, and we have a robot milking herd, which is the Character Dairy herd, and we focus on genomics there. And then we have a milking herd at a second location, and that is a 12 double 12 milking parlor. We also have the our facility where we raise baby calves, and we have a maternity facility as well. So we have a few different locations, and our staff are very important to us, and it's a big piece of what we do. So
Excellent. So it sounds like between that much land that you mentioned, Rose, as well as your operation, and then the different facilities that you have, Jane, it probably takes people in order to make things actually operate and happen. So often in farming, we don't necessarily talk about the training procedures that we go through. Instead, we focus on the, hey, what needs to get done today, right? It's the list. So maybe could we talk a little bit about what type of training process you do in order to ensure the people that you hire are capable of doing their job? Because so often what we hear is that people don't look to farming because they don't have the same training opportunities. So Rose, would you speak a little bit about the training that you have on your farm?
Yeah, I would like to go back one step is already
Sure,
during the hiring process. So
sure.
for each successful applicant, we have conducted 3 interviews. We also have done a reference check. And then on top of that, we do a skill test and we do a farm tour. So for the skill test, we really look very specific for the growth and the fine motor skills. So basically, I want to see also how they progress and how their attitude is, or the behavior is when they're surrounded by large animals. So, and that will determine if we, at the end, gonna hire that specific person. So we put a lot of effort into the training, or into the hiring process. So when we start training an employee, then it doesn't matter how many knowledge, how many skills, or the previous experiences, they all get exactly the same training sessions. Because we have multiple employees and they all have to work together. So for us, it's really important that they all trained exactly the same way. And so we do that step by step. So they go through the same, say like a training session, and we do that over and over again so that they are very familiar with the task, that they can complete the task within a certain time frame, and also in a very safe way. And then on top of that, we want to make sure that they use the terminology that we commonly use in our farm. And the reason why that is so important as well, because with the different employees, if we all use the same terminology, there is less chance for miscommunication. So that's another thing where we really work on. And when certain training session is done, then we start adding other duties to it. And then we go through the same process again. So we start with a very simple task, and when that is successfully completed, then we start adding more tasks, and slowly we do it step by step, so that they feel comfortable in what they're doing, and for us that is going to work at the end. And so the end goal from this is that you want to make sure that that they can work efficient, and that they can work in a team, and that there is no miscommunication, that there's no miscommunication. So then at the end, it doesn't really matter if I have to work with you and Jane, or Jane has to work with person C and D, or person D has to work with me. So that's how we do our training.
No, that's excellent. And I have another question to come back on, but I'll maybe flip to Jane. Just let's talk about the hiring process from your perspective. And what do you do when you're looking for new members to help on your farm operation? What is the first steps? What are kind of the things that you go through of trying to find the right individual?
So I agree with Rose. The interview process is a really key piece. So we usually, myself, will meet off farm with an individual. We do have to be concerned about activists, so we take that very seriously. So we meet off farm, and we have just a conversation. It tells me a lot if I want to continue with that person, and it gives that person a chance to understand a little bit more what we're looking for. Then we will meet probably with a couple of the other owners, and then we move from there to working interviews, so at least 2 shifts that they'll work on. And at some point in time when we decide, and of course we don't do the working interview until we've checked references, unless we're really secure on bringing that person onto the location. And we do meet with their significant other. So I know it's maybe something that it seems a little bit odd, but in the hiring process, we really try to not, well, we don't want to hire crazy. And I could have a really good applicant, but if they're connected to someone who's not as diligent or doesn't understand the expectations of the job, starting maybe at 6 o'clock in the morning, or maybe, you know, it just isn't something that they were aware of, they need to be content at home too. So we really like to meet with the person that they're most connected to. So with their partner, their husband, their wife, whatever the case may be. And we really, right off the top, we stress, we talk about the wages, because there's no sense going through all of that. Some people could live on minimal amount of money and be quite content, and others we could pay to the top of the scale and they still wouldn't be able to make ends meet. So
Sure.
we have a guideline of what our wages will be, and if that is acceptable to them, then we continue. So that's kind of how we go from there. And
So that, oh, go ahead. Sorry,
Right.
keep going.
we do have a 3-month probation period, which is also their training period. We feel it takes us about 3 months to fully train someone, depending on the shift that they're hired for. And we are very clear that that training period is for their benefit as much as ours. So if it isn't working for them, then that's a very clear and easy way for them to make their thoughts known. And if it's not working for us, then we also have the same opportunity. But we're very strict on our probation period, and we make that very clear. So we don't, if somebody has to raise an eyebrow more than twice, because we're a little bit unsure about it, a new hire, then we probably won't hire.
Interesting. So not only did you say that you are looking at the individual, you're kind of looking at their support system. So whether it's a partner, a spouse, whomever that they obviously have in their circle, you're kind of evaluating from a stability and just reliability side of things. Is that
That's
kind of
right.
what you're saying?
If they have a young family, then it's important that they have support at home. They need to have a vehicle. They need to be with someone who understands that that vehicle needs to be in the yard when that person needs to leave for work. Those sorts of things.
Sure. Okay. And then, Rose, one of the things that really stuck with me that you mentioned was terminology. So making sure that people understand, having the same terminology. And oftentimes, I equate agriculture to being a different language. We'll talk about, you know, TMR and various terms that get thrown out. How do you help your staff, and where do you start from the recruitment side of not overwhelming an individual, but yet helping them understand that you're trying to run a farming business, that this isn't just the stereotypical old McDonald farm anymore. It's a business, family operated and owned. But how do you start with that terminology?
Yeah, so yeah, basically in every industry they have certain terminology and basic lingo that they use, right? So but when you learn people step by step, so like when they go through the training session, then they get using those terms over and over again, so that they start using those as well. And that is for us really important, because especially when you work in teams, or you have to go off your task and do something else, so somebody else would be able to take over your task immediately without a lot of communication. And if you use terminology or words that other employees are not familiar with, then you can get tension, miscommunication, things don't get done the way people have asked you to do. So yeah, so that's why it's really, we want to make sure that everybody is on the same playing field.
Okay, excellent. And then you've both mentioned about skills. What are some of the skills, or you mentioned, Rose, a skill test. What are some of the skills that you're kind of evaluating?
Yeah, so when you hire, say, like a new employee, not always are they familiar with working on a farm or working in that kind of environment. So when we do a skill test, we basically go with that new applicant. If we think this might be the right person, that's basically the last step in the process. We go to the barn and we help part of the milking. So he's going to be with somebody else and me right beside him. And I'm going to show him how to actually strip a cow, strip milk out of the teats. I'm going to show him. He's going to copy me. And it's not that he has to know what to do, but I want to see the progress. I'm more interested in the progress. Also, when we're moving cows into the parlor, I want to see how he is around cows. Is he scared? Is he showing aggressive behavior, or do I see certain things? When we're walking around the farm, then I'm looking more at the gross motor skills, how he walks. Is he, because on a farm, it's a lot of walking. You're moving a lot of your larger muscles as well. So if you have troubles with that, with using your muscles, your fine muscles, but also your tiny muscles, but also your bigger muscles, then working on a farm is not the environment you should be in. So when we doing the skill test and the farm tour, we very specific look at those. Yeah, we're looking very closely look at that, but also our other employees who are with them, they will monitor for signs as well.
Okay, excellent. And I guess for you, Jane, to go back to perhaps the hiring process, do you talk about hours worked? How do you bridge that discussion with them in terms of the number of hours that are needed? And how flexible are you with your employees?
So for us, our employees are all full-time with the exception of our students who come in after school. Depending on the position, they're all very set hours and very strict shifts. So we really discourage anybody staying after a shift. If I find that there's a shift that seems to be running 10 minutes late for a few nights in a row, then we need to relook at that. Maybe we have a few more head of cattle than we're expecting. Maybe we have a few calves extra for a couple of weeks. So, but we really discourage any deviation from our shifts. Our shifts, I think that's the biggest piece, maybe the hardest piece initially to put into place, was to determine the shifts, what the timelines were, and how much work could get done in a shift. So everyone works, as Rose said, everyone works the same shifts the same way. Standard operating procedures are a really big piece of what we do. It's a really big piece of the first 3 months of someone being with us, is to learn and familiarize themselves with those standard operating procedures. And we do not deviate from them, especially in health, in the health area and in the sanitation area. The cropping end of it is a little bit different, but we're really strict on how many hours they work in the cropping area, because sometimes you'll be going late into the nights. We expect breaks, and we expect, and we do not allow anyone under the age. We're very strict with people on the tractors and on the roads. We really watch that.
So this is interesting. You're talking that you have certain hours, you're very strict on kind of the time frame, whereas I think that if you ask the average individual in our society, they would think farmers work 24/7 all around the clock, which I think as an owner, obviously, yes, that is the case. But
sorry,
Yes.
the farm goes 24/7.
Right.
But
Right.
you have to recognize when their shift's completed at 1 o'clock or when their shift's completed at 8 p.m., then there's someone else coming on. So I think that's the biggest thing if you're hiring farm orientated employees, is trying to get them to recognize that, you know, it's 1 o'clock, right? Your shift is complete and someone's coming in to take over, because we find it gets, they're hired for that time. That's what they're paid for. So their paychecks, their wages are the same every 2 weeks.
Okay, no, that's interesting, and I appreciate kind of that perspective and those points that you've made. So you really focus on full-time staff. Rose, how about you in terms of hours? How flexible are you with your employees? What does the structure look like on your farm?
So we have, say, quite a few full-timers, but we also do have quite a few part-timers. So when during the hiring process, what we also ask is how many hours do you, if for a full-timer, how many hours can you comfortable work on a weekly basis? And the other questions is that we ask is, what is the best part of, what is the part of the day that you can perform the best? So those two things are very important. So if somebody is a night person, can perform the best at night. If you like to do him a morning shift, probably it's not going to work out that great. And then for the part-timers, we really work with availability beside the other full-time job. So that's how we schedule, and then all our employees are paid on an hourly basis.
Okay, very good. What a good question. What part of the day are you able to do your best work? We often don't look at those very simple things. It's an excellent question to ask and kind of challenge yourself on your operation to say, how can I structure my staff so that I am getting the most out of them, and that they feel like they are contributing in a way that obviously allows them to be, I guess, happy also. So I guess in that respect, let's talk about part-time working versus full-time, and what are some of the benefits on the operation of having full-time staff versus offering lots of part-time individual positions. And Rose, can you start with that one?
Yeah, so for I think part-time workers are also a very important integral part of our business. And they can basically absorb any season or any fluctuation, labor fluctuation that we have on our farm that are beyond our control. And labor fluctuation can be seasonal, can be weather related, but also part-time workers are basically a very good backup plan if you get a sudden change in your workforce. So that's why we like to work with full-timers, but also quite a few part-timers.
Okay. And then Jane, from your perspective, you had mentioned about full-time, and that's kind of the route that your operation has gone. And why is that? And what are the benefits with that?
I wouldn't say full-time worker is preferable for us, mostly for scheduling.
Okay.
It's like you have a job, you know that you are leaving for your job at this time and coming home from your job at this time. It works well for our employees. The cropping end of it is a little bit different. So we do have a couple of seasonal people that we will bring in for tractor driving and that sort of thing. But on a daily working for the operation, we do have the full-time workers. So for scheduling, which I'm sure Rose will say too, is probably a big piece of what we do. I use a program called When I Work, and everyone has it on their phones, or they can get their schedule on their email, which all of our people use a phone for the scheduling. So I can schedule them in blocks, and basically my full time never changed. But if they do need a day off, or if they do switch a shift, they can do that right within the program. So they can drop a shift, they can pick up a shift. If I have a shift that's open, I can put that on the program, and if somebody wants it, they can pick it up. I particularly like it for my students. So I have 6 students that work after school and weekends for us. And they can change within themselves. I schedule them, but I don't really mind if they switch the shifts. And in fact, I encourage them to do it between themselves, and then it'll show up on the program that they've switched. I really like that piece of it. So I think I can navigate less people on a full-time schedule. And it's just a little easier to maintain, and it's too hard to train. So we're biosecure, and it's too hard to bring people in and out. So
Right.
for one of our facilities, 2 of our facilities, we really rely on the same people, so that I can't bring in someone just to fill a shift here and there. It has to be that same group of people. So,
Right.
but
Right.
part-time is, yes, certainly I can see where, and I think we have used it a lot in the past. Of just for me now, scheduling for full-time is easy.
So that's great. Using an app to be able to kind of provide accountability on the staff person as to when their shift works. It allows flexibility for them to be able to obviously communicate with their team members, and probably allows them to feel kind of a little bit empowered that they do have some say in what their schedule looks like. So that's really interesting, because we hear a lot with the up and coming generation that's really important to have flexibility, to have kind of ownership, and to have accountability. So it's interesting how an app can provide a lot of that. Rose, do you have anything that you'd like to add just from a scheduling side of things, how you work it on your farm?
For scheduling, say like all our part-timers and full-timers, they all know that, say like basically every other weekend they're off. So, and we were very, very strict to that, so that they have the time off so they can spend time with the family and friends. So yeah, we like to stick with that. Also, even if it's really, really busy, we still like to stick with that idea. Yeah.
No, that's great. Again, adding that, so often we have the stereotype that there is no time off, there is no flexibility in farming. So I think you are both excellent examples of how managing an operation well, you can offer those things to your staff members, which probably kind of leads me into the next question, which is, how do you manage to keep your employees happy with the work that they are doing? And what are some of your tactics? I'll let each of you choose who would like to answer that question first.
Well,
And you want to
I guess I can.
go first?
It's everybody's a little different. You hear a lot of people say that the millennials, it's not about the money, it's about flexibility, and it's about, but I don't know, it still comes down to the money. I really feel that it's important to really appreciate or recognize your employees by paying them a very fair wage. We like to I like to watch the wage, sort of the graphs for the counties, and I like to be in the upper top of that if we can at all. We also do try to really understand our employees, and everybody's a little different. So also part of our hiring process is we have them do a survey on online for us right after I meet my initial meeting with the person, and it's called www.1616personalities.com, and it's just a little quiz, and most of them find it quite fun, and a lot of people have never sort of delved into personality traits, but it gives us a really good feel for the type of the type of person that they are, what's important to them, how they like to be communicated with. And we really try to hire someone that fits the team. So by that, there's no right and wrong answers. It just gives us a really good feel for how they like to be approached and how they like to be taught or spoken to, or even reprimanded if it comes to that. So that's a piece that we rely heavily on as well. As far as you know, really appreciating them. We give them cash at their birthdays with a handwritten birthday note of appreciation. We use gas cards. We celebrate everything that we can. We have donuts or cupcakes, or we'll bring in meals if we've been through a particularly busy time, or we just really try. Last February we had a family bowling day, and they can bring all their families, and cake and prizes, and we do Christmas dinner. We try to, I think mostly it is just being appreciative. I've traveled a fair little bit, and I remember going to France on a trip, and we toured a lot of cheese factories. And I remember one in particular, one of the owners was taking us through, and he literally left our group as he toured us through and went over and shook the hands of every employee that he came across. And I really, that resonated with me, and I really felt that it showed what a good rapport he had between him and an owner and his employees. And even though now we can't shake hands or hug or not even come together for team meetings, which is a big piece of what we always did. I think there's lots of ways that you can show appreciation, and we really do appreciate our staff. Like they're bang on. They're just great. We really have a good crew.
Those are great examples. That's excellent. I have some comments, but I'll come back. Rose, do you want to answer that same question?
Yeah, so for us too, is like it's really, really important to make sure that all your employees are happy. So when we work with them, it's not like we are the boss and they are the employees. We try to be within them, right? So sometimes it's nice to crack a joke as well. But for the work too, is like what we do is with all our full-time staff members. We do rotate jobs, and especially the jobs that require long hours or very repetitive. So then we think rotating jobs has a huge benefit for the employee, but also for us. And the benefits are that the employee can stay more motivated, more focused on a certain task. Because he's not always doing that same duty, there is more time to develop other skills, because he becomes more versatile, because he can do more duties on the farm, and at the same time, because he can stay more focused and less repetitive work, there is less injuries. So that is something that is really important as well. And at the same time, because we have so many staff members, if they do more different kind of jobs, they have their knowledge they gain a lot of knowledge, and at the same time a much better understanding of the whole entire business. And so then at the same time, if one of your full-time leaves, the other employees, full-times, can pick up those duties really easy, just shifting around a little bit, but at the same time, we just continue with the work. So that is another way that we keep our employees happy, so that is an equal playing field. And so it is very beneficial for the employee, but for us, it's very beneficial because job rotation increases productivity. We also see that the technical performance on the farm is higher, is much better, and you see a collective responsibility. And if something is not right, or you have a question, then nobody will say, oh, that was not my job, or I don't know. Everybody knows. So a very collective responsibility. And then at the same time, what Jane is saying about social events, yeah, we do those too. They are very, very important. If you do those events, it's hilarious. You get to know your employees really well, and that is really important. So if you have a happy employee, you have it's very very nice to go back to your barn every day.
Right. It just really strikes me. Both of you are sharing similar things, but in different ways. So that sense of responsibility and recognition, it's actually proven to show that if you show staff members responsibility, recognition, those are actually longer term motivators than actually just giving them money. So those small things that you mentioned, a gift card or events or things like that, really do show how much you care about the individuals as people, helping to learn how to best communicate with them, how to best understand how they tick. And just that job rotation is such a great simple thing that all probably farmers and big larger corporations could really apply to keep their staff members happy. So I guess my question, just to follow up, has that changed with COVID? Have you had to do anything different to keep your staff happy pre-COVID to now that we are in this pandemic situation, or have you just kind of proceeded as always?
Um,
So
COVID has changed a lot of things. It's changed how our shifts were staggered. We stagger our shifts now so people can come in and not be, still maintain social distance. They all have their own personal thermometer. They take their temperatures when they come in, they log that. And if they have a cough, there's a lot of extra stress there. It's just a lot of extra work for staff. They're cleaning surfaces, they're wearing masks, they're wearing shields if they have to be close to each other. So it is a difficult time. And I have family with young families, and I know how hard it is right now for them to be navigating, kids at school and kids with runny noses and trying to navigate childcare. So I think now is a really important time to really be building up our staff and really letting them know that we understand that on top of their work, they also have a lot of added stress at home. So we just try to be really cognizant of that and trying to be as flexible as we can. I have a cold, should I come in? I have a cough, do I, all those sorts of questions. It's really made a big difference. And one of the other things is that we can't come together as a group. So we're not having our group meetings but we're doing other things. We really try to focus on some of our local restaurants like A&W and McDonald's and Dairy Queen when they have their MS and their Ronald McDonald House fundraisers. We'll go and we'll bring meals for everybody, and it's a way to support a cause, and then it's also a nice break for everybody. They'll have their individual meals. There are some things we can do, but it's tough. It's been tough.
Sure, but it sounds like you're trying to keep your staff safe too. Seems to be your key priority, which is so important and great to hear. Rose, what about yourself? Have things changed? Is there anything different, or do you feel like really things are similar to what they were before?
Now, I think it's very important to follow the directions as outlined by for us dairy farmers of Ontario. So to follow those protocols very strictly. So we discussed that in our barn meetings with our staff members. And we try to advise them too, is that don't go to social events, don't do this. But at the same time, sometimes it's nice to have them all together and do something instead of that they go somewhere else. So yeah, it's really hard. I think it's hard for everybody, but we really try to do our best to make it that we all get through this together.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing those things. I guess moving on to the next kind of subject, you've both talked a bit about communication. So how do you keep your workers or your farm team members updated on what is going on the farm and what different protocols are, you know, perhaps in place? Rose, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah. Okay, so basically the mornings at our place are extremely structured. So everybody knows, all our full-timers know exactly what has to be done on certain days of the weeks and what's going on basically in the morning every hour. So, but beside that, there is still time left over in the morning and in the afternoon for other duties. So every day we have a list on the table in the office where everybody comes in when they clock in. When they start to work, they look on the list, they see what kind of duties have to be completed that day. And those duties are not only written down by my husband or myself, but also our employees see that certain task has to be completed today or tomorrow or another day in the week, and they will write it on it. So write it on the sheet so that everybody is aware of that. And then when a certain task is completed, it will be checked off by that employee. And so that is basically for the daily activities. And then so that's how we communicate with the employees. But also somebody who comes in later, without talking to them, they can see exactly what's going on or what has to be done. Right? So on top of that, we also have, say, like barn meetings. And in those barn meetings, we have different discussions. So, for example, I just wrote it down because what we have done in the past. For example, we talk about production performance. So we're going to look at why are we doing the barn check at night, the heat detection, and what the end result is. How is our pregnancy rate from the cows? So we're talking about it. We're talking about best management practice. We also talk about protocols from our, say, like quality assurance program, and for the dairy industry is ProAction. So we talk about different protocols who are set out in that binder. We talk about certain safety topics where we that we will discuss in one of the meetings. We also talk about new regulations that are coming into effect. For example, there was a new regulation coming into effect regarding transporting animals. So we will discuss that in the meeting so that everybody is well aware of that. And at the same time, we also take time to basically go to a barn, and then if I think a certain duty has to be done better or different, we actually going to show it. And what happens in the past that I saw, okay, one employee doesn't do it the way we like to see it, but I've seen that with more employees, they do it a different way. Then what we do is we actually show it to all the employees at the same time without calling out one employee. So that works really, really well for us. Those barn meetings are super efficient because all the employees are getting the same information and they all get it at the same time. So we absolutely love those barn meetings.
Oh, that's excellent. It sounds like it is a very structured time, which probably does help with communication and direction and expectations. So that's great. Jane, how about yourself? What practice do you have on your farm or your operation when it comes to keeping people informed on what's going on?
Well, we're always, you know, trying to keep on top of changes and upcoming protocols and policies, of course. One of the things that we rely on heavily are our phones. So we use a lot of chat lines, and I'll have different chat lines for different groups of staff. So I'll have a health chat line, an operations chat line, a cropping chat line, an ownership chat line, so we can communicate between us as a group and everyone gets the same messages. I agree with Rose that staff meetings are a really big piece of what we do. We're trying not to amalgamate our staff from the different locations, so we haven't been doing that just due to COVID. But we will, we do take, also we use little video clips too. If there's something, a procedure we'd like to change, or if we notice that something's maybe not as efficient as it could be, or we'd like to try a new way, or if the staff have a thought, they'll take a little video clip of, hey, I tried to do it this way and it worked really well. Here's a video clip. And then if we you'll try it or we'll look at it and we can send it out to everyone. So we like to do that a lot. Lists are a really big thing of what we do. We use a lot of clipboards. We'd have a lot of logs, so everybody can check off on the log when it was last done, especially with sanitation protocols. And another thing we use on our phones is, it's called To Do, or it used to be Wonderlist. And it's a place where everyone can add in their lists, like if there's maintenance things, if there's something that needs to be checked, if there's an electrician's list, there's a plumber's list, there's a maintenance list, there's a shopping list. So if we need to restock our brooms or scrapers or
Great idea. Yeah.
those sorts of things, everybody can add to the list. And when you complete that task, so say a student comes in and they've pulled all the fly strings in the barn, or they've completed something specific, they can click on that and it comes off.
What a great idea. I love it when we're learning from each other of things that you want to write down and say, I think I'm going to implement that tomorrow. So that's good. So my question is there differences between your communication and updates with your team that works from perhaps the crop side of the business to the animal side of the business? Is it the same people working back and forth? How does that work? What is the difference? Obviously, you've mentioned, Rose, quite a bit of land that you both work. How does that work with individuals from a cropping season versus the animal side?
Yeah, so it's sometimes the people who working in some of the people working in the cropping at our place are not involved in on the dairy side. So, but some do, and some we can move backwards and forwards. So it's yeah, there are different way of communicating with them. Yeah.
Okay.
It's difficult to say how we do it, but it's I see a lot of things that Jane is doing. I think, oh, that's a nice idea too. Yeah.
No, that's good. How about you, Jane, from the cropping side of the business versus the animal side?
So we have a we have someone who looks after the cropping side of our business for us, and he's full-time. And I have someone who is the head of our calf raising facility. And then we also have, so we will, we're always aware of what's going on in those locations, but we're not always, how would I say it? We're always aware, but they manage their own areas.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
that's fair.
Yeah.
So we do kind of go back and forth a little bit. But mostly those managers look after their own staff in their own areas, and we certainly oversee it. And we're kept, we use our phones a lot. We're always, we'll get text messages, or if I have some concerns, or if I want to make sure everything's going okay, then, I slip a text out, how are you doing for time? How's that calf, right? And that's a lot of how we communicate. I really rely a lot on my phone. Sometimes I get a bit of teasing over it, but I really like to communicate a lot with the text messages. I've had to on occasion go back through my texts sometimes just to clarify a point, or just to follow up on some some duties, or some, if there's some concerns. And I do like to have a paper trail. So I find that helpful.
No, that's great. And that's a great example of how trying to allow others responsibility and accountability depending on what part of the business they're in. But I think what I'm hearing you say is that communication piece is just really important, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be a simple text message, but having it there, making sure that you are clear, and if it's not clear, being repetitive is kind of just a basic best practice that I think everybody can put in place to be perhaps more effective when managing and working with team members. So no, that's really good. So this always amazes me. Our time flies. I always say, oh, we'll only be 30 minutes, but we have these great conversations, and before you know it, we're almost at an hour here. So I guess the one thing that I wanted to ask you both is, what is one thing that you wish people knew about working on a farm? Because at the end of the day, that's why we are working with this Feeding Your Future campaign, trying to help connect individuals with farming opportunities, with opportunities along the full value chain. So what is it that you wish people would know about working on a farm? And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate the opportunity to develop new skills, the variety of skills that you can learn on a farm, and also that a lot of those skills that you have gained on a farm that you can transfer into other job opportunities. And it's too bad that a lot of people really don't know that. So there are so many things that people can learn on the farm. Yeah.
And Jane?
I think that that people have to recognize that we need staff that are committed and available. And I think sometimes if they're from a farming background, they feel that it's maybe not so structured, and they can, it's easy to come and go, or to do a different task on a different day. And I think being committed and being available for any job is important, in particular on the farm. As employers, we're just basically good leaders. And so we want to give hope to employees. We want to give them security, and we want to give them encouragement. So I think on the farm, we have a great opportunity to do that. I think we have an opportunity to sort of rub elbows with our, so to speak, for COVID, I guess, rub elbows. But I think we have a good opportunity to really get to know our staff, and I think that working, just being able to be out and about. It's a lot of people aren't meant to be inside or in an office, and it's a great opportunity, like Rose said, to learn some incredible new skills. Like we're just employers trying to be good leaders and offering interesting jobs.
Right, as simple as that. And I think some of the examples that you've given is not just on the skill development, but the fact that you obviously both value your staff members, you look for ways to improve them, to build confidence, to allow them to have variety. All things that perhaps when, I call it the headlines, when people get on social media, they see the headlines of farming, and they don't always look deeper to see some of the things that both of you have shared today of all the positives of working on a farming operation. So I just really appreciate the fact that you are digging in, sharing some of your examples and details. And I think goes to my final question here is, how do you think you've developed such a great reputation? Because when I asked about looking for farmers to speak on this topic, I will say your names came up more than once. So clearly you both have great reputations with your farm. And how have you developed that, I guess, is my question.
I don't know, Rose. I didn't know we were. I think you want to be fair. I think you want to offer fair wages. I think you want to be fair with your staff, and I think it's important to appreciate people. So just being thankful and grateful that you have good staff. I think that's an important piece, and being able to offer them nice working conditions. We're proud of our locations. We like to keep them clean. We do offer our staff coveralls and we supply their boots. It's maybe nice for them, but it's also important to us because then they all look, they look clean and tidy and professional, and I think they like to come to work and know that they're valued, and to to work in nice facilities is I'm not saying they have to be new. Ours aren't, we have quite an old barn where our robot is, but you can keep it nice and you can keep it bright and you can keep the light bulbs changed and all those little things that make a difference.
Oh, that's great. How about you, Rose?
Now I only can say that I'm completely agree with Jane about that, and I think it's very, very important to have a good relationship with your employees. Don't try to micromanage them. I don't think that is right. Give them opportunity to learn more skills and grow with them. Be excited when they know something, when they have learned something new. And but at the same time, it's not only with your employees, but it's also with all the employees from your suppliers. So make sure that when they come in and have to do maintenance or do something else on your farm, that you have a really good relationship with them. Because sometimes, and we have seen that multiple times in the past at our farm, is that some of those employees from other organizations looking for extra work, extra hours, or they want to switch job. And then if you have a good relationship with them as well, then that can happen. Then they take on a part-time job at our place, or they know somebody else, they refer us to somebody else. That can happen. Or some people retire from the job, and the day before they retire, they come over to our farm and they say, like, I'm looking for a part-time job. And I say, wow, this is really, really good. So we're really happy with that is all going on. So value your employees is extremely important. Pay them well, be good with them, and give them absolutely opportunities to develop new skills. Definitely.
Excellent. So then I lied because I just have two more questions that have come in, and I have to ask them because people are enjoying what you have to say. One of the questions is, we talked a lot about skills, but what would you say is one personal characteristic, not skill, that you look for in a new to farming staff member?
Okay. I think for us, it's really important that they are a team player and willingness, attitudes. Those kind of things are for us really important. If they have that, we can go places with them.
Love it. If they have it, we can go places. That's great. And this question is for you, Jane. Running a farm business in a rural area where there's no public transportation is a significant barrier. Have you found this as a challenge on your farm? And have you had to do any creative approaches in order to find a solution? So basically asking about public transportation, whether that's a significant barrier in finding seasonal labor or obviously team members for your farm.
Yes, it would be a problem, and no, it's not a problem for us. One of the first things, because we do live in Bruce County, and we do start before the plows are out in the winter. So one of the first things that's very important to us is, do you have a vehicle? What kind of vehicle do you drive? And are you good with winter driving? So, because when you have livestock waiting to be fed, you don't have a lot of options. And we have had to make arrangements to get people into work on time, but we're pretty fortunate. But no, I can understand where it's a problem. My students are, when my kids were working, we drove our kids to their jobs and picked them up, and my students, their parents do the same, and they have to be on the job at 5:45 in the mornings on the weekends, and so we're pretty lucky that way. But it can be a deterrent, but we can only look at hiring someone who has a way to get to work.
So again, being clear with your expectations, obviously it's a challenge and you'd love to have a great big transit system in order to move people, but that doesn't always solve the problems either. So no, I appreciate that answer. The one other thing that just came in, and I promise this is the final question, is how do you handle individual performance reviews? Do you do them? And if you don't, why not?
We in the past have been quite diligent on our performance reviews, and there's a lot of talk now about performance reviews. A lot of the bigger companies are starting to go away from them. So we do have our 3-month probation period, which we are very, very strict on. We haven't talked about firing someone or letting someone go, which is never a nice part of what we do. My son always says it's fun to be the boss until you have to be the boss. And that's never a nice thing to have to do. But the best way to lose a good employee is to keep a poor one. So I've kind of digressed there a little bit from what your question was. I'm sorry. Kathy.
No, that's okay. So I think you're on the right track. And I think Rose had mentioned earlier that when there's a mistake, she doesn't necessarily point out at one person, she teaches them all. So to me, that's a step towards a performance review. So my question is for both of you, do you do individual performance reviews? And if not, what is your better method?
At the end of our 3 months, we definitely meet.
Okay.
And we definitely have decided what areas that we will be concerned about, or if there are any areas. And we do have a performance review that we would look at for someone that was maybe having some difficulties, maybe efficiency, maybe not as efficient as we need them to be at that point in time, maybe having some trouble following directions. One thing that we're really cautious about is being a team player, and one thing we do not tolerate is gossip. So if there's any concerns, they have to go up the scale to management, not down to coworkers, and that will cause reason for a performance review if we find that we have someone that's not following those guidelines. So one thing that quickly we'll mention is we do incident reports. They're posted on all locations, and an incident report is when something happens that a staff member is concerned about and they want to let you know. So we have mailboxes and envelopes that they can fill out an incident report, and they can make their concerns known, and they can put it in the envelope and in the box. And when a staff member gets an incident report, then we have an opportunity to discuss with that staff member that concern. And it can be on anything. So if someone drops an $800 bottle of medicine, they will write that up themselves. They'll say, here's what happened, I dropped the medicine. Because we need to know, right? Like, we have a lot of employees and things happen, and we understand that. But incident reports are a thing that we rely on heavily.
Okay, great. How about you, Rose? Anything to add to that?
Yeah. So basically, I think open communication with your employees is very, very important. So if a person wants to do something, and I think this is the best approach for example, with a cow, then sometimes they like to call Henry quickly and say, okay, this is what's going on. This is what I like to do or should do. So the communication with our employees is extremely open, which is very important. We also tell them, and also we address that in our barn meetings, if there is a mistake made, right? Please step forward. Don't try to hide it, because sooner or later we will find out. Right, so be open, and that's all what we try to do. We don't do an individual performance, say like once a year, because we don't set targets, really strict targets per person, what they should be accomplished at the end of the year, as was used in the banking industry. But we do it overall. We talk to them how the performance is, that we are very happy with them. So in general, if they should expand on certain skills, we will mention that. But if we have an employee what definitely underperforms, we go with that person. We will have individual meetings with that person. I make my own notes, I write them in my agenda, and then we will follow up. And in the worst case scenario, we have to fire that person.
But I think what I'm hearing you say is having communication, having accountability, and having the systems for your staff members to be able to utilize, to be able to have the open communication is just really critical to the success on your operation. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Absolutely.
That's right. Okay. No. Well, with that, we blinked and we're at the end of our time here. I couldn't not take a moment to obviously appreciate the fact that this week is Ontario Ag Week, a reason to celebrate. Often we don't take the time out of our busy schedules to really appreciate and give a nod to the people who obviously produce safe and healthy food. So I truly nod to both of you because you obviously contribute to our local Ontario food, and we really appreciate both of you as farmers. And obviously just wanted to take a moment to not just say thank you because of this, but thank you for taking the time, because you're both very busy individuals with a lot going on. And I know this takes effort to get things set up, but your knowledge is invaluable. Today, even the questions coming in and the ability for us to share this information with others, it will be wonderful. And we're going to write some articles up, as well as obviously we have this recorded today so that we can share it. And today has, if we just flip to the next slide, has been really focused because we've been working on a partnership with OFA called Feeding Your Future, agcareers.com and careersandfood.com. And we will have another webinar coming up on October 20th, which is another panel discussion looking at the full value chain and just kind of insights around obviously what individuals do for hiring, as well as just how it has been impacted in this 2020 year. And then we're excited because we have partnered with the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair to try to highlight some of the great opportunities like working on a farm that you both have talked about. And it is going to be a virtual career fair. agcareers.com and careersandfood.com through the Feeding Your Future program are working with the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair on November 10th and 12th to be able to highlight some of the opportunities, the jobs, the careers that are available. And then just finally, obviously, these are ways, if you're looking for help, or if you need some advice, or if you'd like access to this recording today, here are your different avenues and the partners that have come together to collaborate to bring great information. So with that, I thank you both over and over again, because I really appreciate your time. And I smile because I think you both were very humble in saying, oh, no, I'm not the right person for this. I don't know much. And it just proves how quickly an hour can go by with the valuable information that you both shared. So thank you so much. And with that, we'll sign off and send you on your way for the day, and appreciate your time. So thank you very much.